And then when you get down to the municipal level, I mean, that's when you can make your laws that actually are relevant to your city, where you can, people can like actually go to the city hall and be like, no, that's a bad law.
Don't do that, that, whatever. Yeah.
Or,
something like that, or some sort of reimagined kind of politics where you're more directly voting on things. And the USA almost has, they really don't, but they have it slightly more than us, where they have like, they're like vote yes on proposition X or vote no on it.
Yeah.
Where it's like a significant, I don't even know the details, but some sort of significant policy change that people actually get to vote on, which is quite interesting. And I think that makes way more sense, where it's like, all right, here's this economic thing, vote on it. Or if there's some sort of economic thing where you're like, I don't know anything about this, doesn't affect me, I'll vote. Someone else can vote, right? Like,
yeah.
I
mean, we have the technology.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology.
But that's what the whole fucking voter fraud shit down in the States too. It's like, we have the technology to make a better system, or
we just kind of choose not to.
Yeah.
They choose not to, I guess you should say.
Yeah. And is it because like boomers just don't know what's going on? Or is it because, well, also, I mean, there's very good arguments to not use electronic voting ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those arguments are super relevant. And I mean, I think that the issue they're coming up with right now is because there's so many different methods of how they're counting votes in the states.
Mm-hmm.
There's like certain states that are like no
super
electronic,
modernized, some that aren't.
No electronic voting. Some are like only electronic voting. Some are like some counties are, some aren't. It's so weird, man. Like you would think that there'd be some sort of standardized process for.
That is the strangest thing about it. And then, because there's so many micro arguments about it, but there's no one really saying like, hey, why do you have the most disorganized, discombobulated voting system fucking ever?
Yeah.
Right. And then they also have like your ID requirements by state change drastically. Like it's just, it literally makes no sense. And it does have to do with them being a confederal system where states have more legislative authority over that sort of thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah,
I know.
Like, why? I don't get it.
And I think at the end of the day, this whole thing is probably going to go all the way to the Supreme Court because there's just so many moving parts that they need some sort of like authority to actually come down.
Review.
With. Yeah.
Yep.
Because there's recounts going on in like 4 or 5 different states right now.
Yeah.
It's so weird, man.
I also, what's interesting is technically, I believe it was the 2000 election that it was actually the Supreme Court was involved in that one, and they actually essentially decided Bush was president or whatever in that one.
Yeah. Guess who was on his team?
Who?
Kavanaugh.
Oh, really?
And the most recent justice, Comey Barrett. Very interesting.
Those were Bush's lawyers?
Yeah.
Oh, intriguing.
They're part of his legal team to get the recounts and all of that.
So, that's interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, no official authority has actually declared a winner. It's just
it's
media
just
that's called it, correct?
Just media sources.
Which is also a weird American problem that why does media have the ability / authority / public allowance to call an election?
I think
it's kind of a weird thing.
This is the last year they're going to be able to do that.
Oh, big time.
I think that they've kind of shot their shot so much that in 4 more years, nobody's going to even turn to them. Because, I mean, frankly, people were watching alternative sources more than they were watching CNN. Mm-hmm. Fox News had called, like, Arizona, like, at the beginning of the night, and it still hasn't even been called, really.
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous. So, and it's because of that culture of we have to be the first to break a story.
Be a breaking news. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a weird, just such a weird construction that the news has been, and that every channel is now 24/7. It's like there's not at 3 a.m. there's not breaking news, right? Like, holy fuck.
No.
like why does it's because they took like the 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. news or whatever, and now, which would have breaking stories and interesting things, and now they've stretched that model to every hour to encapsulate a day.
Yep.
So there needs to be like constant breaking news every hour of every day.
Yeah. And it gives, I don't know, man, it gives me fucking anxiety to even think about like watching the news. I
Yeah,
do not
I can't
do it. I do
could
not do it.
like living in a. I truly don't. I don't sit and watch news. Like I definitely read news because it gets to you on social media, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But to sit and watch the news must just like it's got to be unhealthy. Like for your physically, you would be in such a state of anxiety constantly to constantly be watching the news. Like, you know, whatever news channel you choose to watch, if you watched it from like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., like that's got to take like 7 to 10 years off your life, right? Like, holy fuck.
I remember just like, even let's talk about like September 11th. Like I remember just the news always being on. And this was when I was like in fucking grade 3. And I just thought that there were, everywhere I was going to go, I was going to get killed by a terrorist, frankly. Right? But seriously, like that's what they do, is they create these completely false worlds that people live in of like, I'm going to walk down the street, I'm going to get shot.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, because there's like people even, you kind of see jokes about it in like, I mean, the classic joke would be like kind of, let's say, profiling someone of Middle Eastern descent in an airport, right? Which you see jokes about that in like Family Guy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I remember growing up, there was kind of a narrative of like, oh, we've painted Middle Eastern people in such a negative light. But it was definitely true. Like you just said, you were overly afraid of being victim of a terror attack, right? And it kind of morphed into like a prejudice towards certain cultures and stuff, for sure, right? But like, why would, that was an argument, that was more when the media was more right-leaning, and that was a left-leaning argument of like, oh, the media is racist. But now that the tables have turned and the media is more left, and you're like, oh, you're creating narratives that are invoking fear. It's like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
Trust the experts.
Exactly.
Right? So
yeah. Well, like everybody's going to die of a virus and everybody's racist pretty much.
Yeah.
So
it's such a dog and pony. You know, part of me, because there's a lot of people talking about like, oh, there's going to be all these drastic changes, yada, yada. And perhaps there would be, just because, I mean,
drastic changes in what regard?
Society, media, for better, for worse.
Yeah.
Whether this is, you know, will this be the tech oligarch overlords controlling our life? Is that what it's going to become? Or is it going to be nothing? Or is it going to be fucking bread lines and stuff, right? Like, you know, people who either, where I'm going with this is, I was rewatching some old South Park the other day, and I watched, the episode is called A Little Bit Country, and it's season 7, and it's actually their 100th episode, and it's from like 2003. And the point of the episode is like, because it's something to do with the Iraq War, and then half the town is kind of more, well, redneck. They sing country music. Yeah. They're like, if you don't like America, you can get out, is one of their lines they use in the show all the time. And then the other side is more like hippie rock and roll, and they're like, oh, we don't want the war, right? And then they divide their town in half, or they're all fighting, then they divide the town in half, and then they're like, okay, but the post office is on that side of town and the doctor's office is on this side of town. So I guess you guys can come over there and do this and this.
Sure.
And then the end message is like, oh, I guess we kind of need each other to be 50% this and 50% that and just kind of coexist. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you have the right answer and sometimes you have the right answer and stuff, right? And then they all start singing together and then the kids are like, what the fuck just happened? But the point remains, because that was 17 years ago, but
yeah,
it almost made me think, minus technology, nothing really has changed, right?
No.
So it almost, there's a lot of like, some people fear/joke/seriously fear this is going to be like the rising of Facebook being the government and people not being allowed out of your homes and stuff.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I kind of think it'll be more the other way, and that's kind of the charade of politics of nothing will really change.
Pretty much.